President Moon Jae-in says the government will have a national strategy for artificial intelligence by the end of the year. That'll involve government investment in related technologies such as 5G.
U.S. President Donald Trump announces the death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the extremist Islamic State leader, during a covert U.S. military raid inside Syria. We bring you the details on the demise of the world's most wanted man.
And the Seoul Metropolitan Government plans to spend $2.5 billion over 3 years in housing support for newlyweds. NEWSCENTER begins now.
Good evening to our viewers in Asia and hello to others watching from around the world. Welcome to Arirang News Center. I'm Han-Dan in Seoul.
And I'm Noah. Thank you as always for joining us this evening. We begin with the latest developments on North Korea's sudden request to remove South Korean facilities from Mount Kumgang Resort. South Korea has made a counter-proposal to North Korea 3 days after the North demanded the removal of facilities from the iconic tourist site that represents inter-Korean cooperation.
Pyongyang had suggested to discuss the matter in a written form, but Seoul wants to meet for talks. Kim Ji-yeon has her top story.
The Ministry of Unification has proposed working-level talks with North Korea about a long-suspended tour program at the North's Kumgangsan mountain. This in response to Pyongyang's demand last Friday that Seoul remove all of its resort facilities there. The ministry spokesperson Lee Sang-min said in a briefing Monday that notice was sent through the Inter-Korean Joint Liaison Office, proposing a meeting at the mountain at a, quote, convenient time, bringing together the authorities of the two sides as well as officials from the South Korean tour operator Hyundai Asan. Lee said the government's been consistent with the stance that inter-Korean relations should be resolved in a reasonable way through dialogue and warned that unilateral measures by the North could hurt relations.
Unilateral measures concerning the property rights of South Korean businesses goes against the sentiment of the South Korean people, which could potentially harm inter-Korean relations. There's a need to resolve this through sufficient dialogue between the two Koreas.
He added that the Kumgangsan mountain area has served as an inter-Korean cooperative project as a rendezvous site for families separated by the Korean War, as well as a place for social and cultural exchanges. Launched in 1998, the inter-Korean tour program to the mountain was suspended 10 years later after a South Korean tourist was shot dead by a North Korean guard. The North has yet to respond to Seoul's proposal. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in has promised his government's backing for companies and developers in the field of artificial intelligence to make South Korea an AI powerhouse. And he says the government will be ready with a plan within this year. Our Park Hee-jun has more.
President Moon Jae-in says the South Korean government will unveil a national strategy by the end of the year to help the country develop its artificial intelligence industry.
정부는 올해 안으로 완전히 새로운 인공지능에 대한 기본 구상을 바탕으로 인공지능 국가 전략을 제시할 것입니다.
This was during his keynote speech on Monday at the debut 2019 in Seoul. 1,200 business people, developers, and students attended the largest annual developers conference in Korea. To respond to the growing influence of the technology, the government has allocated $1.5 billion to data, 5G networks, and AI in the 2020 budget, a 50% increase on 2019. The president promised to help companies make bold investments and rapid profits through the soon-to-be-announced strategy so that Korea can become a leader in the field.
이게 지금은 이제 그 리모트 컨트롤러가 되는 거잖아요. 뭐 이렇게 사람 말에 따라서 움직인다거나 스스로 알아서 움직인다거나 이렇게.
그래서 5G 기술이 요것으로 굉장히 중요하고요. 이 로봇과 5G 기술을 위해서 클라우드에 들어가면 커뮤니케이션 일단 그런 영화의 대부분이 이제 현실이 되고 있습니다.
But President Moon says it will not stop there. He highlighted that AI will be applied to various social issues, ranging from health and welfare in an aging society to the safety of women living alone and preventing crime. Artificial intelligence has been an actively discussed topic at the Blue House during President Moon's meetings with his top aides. It was also discussed during a sit-down in July with SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son, also known as Son Jung-hee, who repeatedly stressed the importance of AI. The president's remarks at the conference made clear his determination to foster the AI industry to back the growth in non-memory semiconductors, biotech, and future cars, which he sees as Korea's 3 new growth engines. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in will embark on a 3-day trip this Sunday for a series of global events next month. The first leg of his trip will be in Thailand, where he will attend summit meetings related to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations.
President Moon, through the ASEAN Summit, will explain the administration's major issues, including the situation on the Korean Peninsula. He will call for ASEAN member nations' continued support for the successful hosting of the Korea-ASEAN Special Summit and the Korea-Mekong Summit scheduled from the 25th to the 27th of November in Busan.
And from the 13th of November until the 19th, the president will be traveling to Latin America for an official visit to Mexico and to attend the APEC Summit meeting in Chile. The presidential office expects that trip will upgrade ties with Mexico to a strategic partnership and lead to discussions at the APEC Summit on trade and investment, as well as sustainable economic growth. South Korea's ruling Democratic Party has vowed its utmost efforts to foster a fair society and an economy in which all can coexist. In a policy speech at the National Assembly on Monday, the party's floor leader Lee In-young highlighted the need to reform the prosecution and revamp the electoral system in order to achieve those goals. He said the prosecution's power needs reining in and the electoral system needs to better reflect people's preferences. He also noted the need to reform Parliament in order to prevent boycotts and deadlocks caused by partisan wrangling. He added the National Assembly needs to step up legislative activity to support next year's expansionary budget in order to boost the economy. South Korea's Prime Minister Lee Nak-yon has become the longest-serving prime minister in the country's democratic history. Thanks to his extensive political resume, speculation mounts what role the prime minister will play with parliamentary elections upcoming in April next year. Our political correspondent Kim Min-ji reports.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yon has become the longest-serving prime minister since South Korea adopted a direct presidential system in 1987, recording 881 days in office as of Monday. He's been on the job since the Moon Jae-in administration set sail in May 2017. He overtakes the previous record of 880 days set by former Prime Minister Kim Hwang-sik, who served under the Lee Myung-bak administration. The Prime Minister said it was an honor to hold such record, but he also has his regrets.
It's a great honor to have such a title. I think I tried to give it my all, but looking at the outcome, I do have regrets. Data show there's been a recovery to some degree, but at the same time, there are still people that are suffering. That hurts me.
Lee, a former journalist, is known for his extensive political career, having experience as a governor of Jeollanam-do province and as a 4-term lawmaker. He also recently took on a diplomatic role, holding talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in the hope of easing bilateral tensions sparked by historical and trade issues. Speculation is mounting over Lee's next potential move, especially with general elections coming up next April. Lee is also considered a potential presidential contender, as he leads various opinion polls as the strongest candidate from the ruling Democratic Party. However, Lee has remained tight-lipped on the matter, saying that for now he plans to do his best to reach out to those experiencing difficulties.
I can't decide on my next step alone. I will work it out in a harmonious way.
Pundits say that the Prime Minister will likely run for the parliamentary elections next year on the ruling party ticket, or take a role in the party's election campaign. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Turning to some economic news now, and the Korea Development Institute has urged South Korea's central bank to focus more on its 2% inflation target. In its report, the state-run think tank said falling consumer price inflation this year is not just caused by supply-side factors, but also demand-side pressure. It added that the Bank of Korea needs to use monetary policy and focus on price stabilization rather than financial stability to lower the possibility of deflation. Consumer prices fell on-year for the first time in September, and inflation expectations also dropped to a record low of 1.7% this month. Seoul City plans to spend $2.5 billion over 3 years in housing support for newlyweds. The funding is set to begin next year with $850 million to be spent annually. It's expected to help roughly 25,000 couples each year for their first 7 years of marriage. The plan includes lowering the standard for financial support so that couples with a combined annual income of under $85,000 from the previous $68,000 can apply for low-interest loans. Other measures include building 2,000 more rental homes each year to 15,000. The city also plans to support couples who have not legally registered their marriage. The National Assembly has ratified a free trade agreement between South Korea and the UK in preparation for Brexit. The deal centres on maintaining benefits enjoyed by the two countries under the South Korea-EU FTA that went into effect 8 years ago. The two countries also agreed to treat products transported via the EU the same as those shipped directly to the UK for 3 years. Seoul's Trade Ministry says the agreement will immediately take effect in the case of a no-deal Brexit. Should Britain leave the EU with a deal, the FTA will take effect at the end of that deal's transition period. With the latest developments, South Korea becomes the first Asian country to have completed the ratification of a trade deal with the United Kingdom. Two South Korean internet giants are joining forces in new fields of digital technology based on the super-fast 5G mobile network. SK Telecom and Kakao have announced what they call a strategic partnership through a share swap deal worth $256 million. SK will own a 2.5% stake in Kakao, while Kakao will take a 1.6% stake in SK Telecom. The two companies aim to develop new 5G services for commerce, shopping and content. They also plan to work on new technologies based on AI and the Internet of Things. In other news, the most powerful people in China's ruling Communist Party are meeting this week behind closed doors in a highly anticipated session on policy. In the face of challenges like the trade war with the US and the protests in Hong Kong, it's likely they'll be looking for ways to ensure the party's grip on power. Oh Jung-hee reports.
With various challenges at home and abroad, sluggish economic growth, an ongoing trade war with the U.S., and anti-government protests in Hong Kong, leaders of China's ruling Communist Party are gathering this week to discuss the way forward. Over 300 members of the party's Central Committee will be gathering behind closed doors to discuss strengthening China's socialist system and governance from Monday to Thursday. It's the first meeting in 20 months, the longest interval between two plenary sessions in recent decades. The meeting comes at a critical time when China faces several crises. In its handling the Hong Kong demonstrations, China has faced criticisms over its violence and for trampling the rights and liberties of the people of Hong Kong. At the same time, Beijing's economy is growing at its slowest pace in nearly 3 decades, partially affected by a protracted trade war with Washington. Experts say it's key for Beijing to use the occasion to add political legitimacy to the party's rule. Though these issues aren't likely to be included in the final communiqué, they're highly likely to be touched upon. China's ruling party is also expected to seek ways to strengthen its leadership at various levels of society, possibly rolling out reform plans. At the third plenary sessions held in spring last year, the party laid out comprehensive institutional reforms, merging a number of state institutions and bringing them under the party's direct control. The results of the meeting won't be known until China's official Xinhua News Agency releases the details on Thursday. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
US President Donald Trump has announced that the fugitive leader of the Islamic State has killed himself and 3 of his children during a US-led military operation in Syria. The following day, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi's right-hand man was also said to have been killed in a US strike. Our Kim Bo-kyung has more on the death of the world's most wanted man.
Speaking at the White House on Sunday in a televised address to the nation, President Trump announced that a U.S.-led attack in Syria led the world's most wanted man, Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, to kill himself by detonating his suicide vest.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He was the founder and leader of ISIS, the most ruthless and violent terror organization anywhere in the world. The United States has been searching for Baghdadi for many years.
President Trump added that U.S. Special Forces suffered no losses during the raid, and he thanked Russia, Turkey, Syria, and Iraq for their support. Following the announcement, French President Emmanuel Macron said Baghdadi's death is a hard blow for the Islamic State, but just one stage in the fight against the terror group. He added that the fight is France's top priority in the Middle East. Russia's defense ministry, however, reacted with skepticism, stating that it had no reliable information on the U.S. operation. The following day, Baghdadi's right-hand man and ISIS spokesman Abu al-Hassan al-Muhajir was also killed in a joint raid by Kurdish-led militia and U.S. forces in northern Syria. While the deaths of the top 2 ISIS leaders deals a significant blow to the terrorist group, security experts believe the extremist organization remains a global threat. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was considered the driving force behind the Islamic State's rapid rise from a small offshoot of al-Qaeda to one of the most potent terrorist networks in history that once ruled over territory the size of Great Britain. Not many people had heard of ISIS or its leader in 2010, but over the years, the group brought misery and fear to millions, not only in the Middle East, but around the world. Ji-young has more on the life of al-Baghdadi.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was born in 1971 in the central Iraqi city of Samarra. His religious Sunni Arab family is reportedly descended from the Prophet Muhammad's Quraysh tribe, which pre-modern Sunni scholars regarded as being a key qualification for becoming a caliph. After the U.S.-led invasion that overthrew Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein in 2003, Baghdadi allegedly participated in funding an Islamist insurgent group that aimed to attack American troops and their allies in Iraq. Then in 2004, Baghdadi was taken by U.S. troops to the now infamous Abu Ghraib's prison complex, which later became known as a university for the future leaders of ISIS as the inmates developed network during their detention. Upon his release, he is believed to have come into contact with al-Qaeda in Iraq, and following the death of that group's leader in a U.S. airstrike, the organization changed its name to the Islamic State of Iraq. When the Islamic State of Iraq's former leader was killed in a U.S. raid in 2010, al-Baghdadi was named his successor. In 2013, the group announced its absorption of an al-Qaeda-backed militant group in Syria, and Baghdadi declared his group the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, now more commonly known as ISIS. In July 2014, he grabbed the world's attention with his first public appearance on camera as he claimed the pulpit's Mosul's medieval Al-Nuri Mosque during Friday prayers to announce the restoration of the caliphate. Over the years, ISIS sleeper cells attacked and killed hundreds of people in dozens of cities, including Paris, Nice, Orlando, Manchester, London, and Berlin, and in nearby Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. However, ISIS started to fall apart as the incoming Trump administration in the U.S. made the group's destruction one of its top foreign policy goals. Even though Baghdadi is now dead, he remains as a mysterious figure in death as he was in life, because even today, experts say it's unclear to what degree he contributed to the rise and subsequent fall of ISIS. Ji-young, Arirang News.
A statue has been installed near Washington, D.C. in remembrance of the Korean women and girls forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military before and during the Second World War. This comes after years of delay due to Japan's strong opposition. Oh Soo-young has the story.
A statue representing the Korean victims of sexual slavery under the Japanese Imperial Army has been unveiled near Washington, D.C. Won-ok, a 93-year-old surviving victim, was forced into serving sex at a Japanese military brothel 80 years ago. She placed a wreath of flowers on the statue.
The pain of my past has been shared bearing this girl, the Statue of Peace, which sits at this place.
The launch comes after 3 years of delay due to strong opposition from Japan, which has made undisguised attempts to remove statues representing comfort women from various locations around the world. At a ceremony in Annandale, Virginia, just a short drive away from the US capital, various state officials and members of the Korean expat community celebrated the launch. An exhibition has also been set up to raise awareness of the wartime atrocity that affected an estimated 200,000 women in Asia.
It provides educational content on human rights and dignity, and the movement against war and injustice to future generations.
It is the 14th Statue of Peace installed in the United States. Former comfort women and activists for their cause have for decades been calling on Japan to issue a formal heartfelt apology for their wartime sexual enslavement of women. But time is running out. Only 20 Korean victims remain alive, as 220 of those registered with the government have already passed away. 오수영, Arirang News.
While South Korea continues efforts to contain the outbreak of African swine fever, 2 new cases were confirmed last week, prompting officials to take their response to the next level. Won Jung-hwan has the latest.
South Korea will set up fences from the east to the west of the country in a bid to stop wild boars spreading African swine fever in the south. Quarantine authorities decided Sunday to build these structures that will stretch from the western border city of Paju to Gosong on the east coast after wild boars infected with African swine fever were found near the border. The 200-kilometer-long fence will be constructed in 4 different regions, including Paju and Cheoron. The officials plan to first set up fences in 3 regions near the outbreak zones before mid-November, and then extending them to the eastern side as soon as the first phase is finished. From Monday, authorities will also expand the areas where the hunting of wild boars is permitted as part of broader measures to prevent the further spread of the disease. No additional African swine fever infections have been reported at local commercial pig farms since the 14th case was confirmed on October 9th. But the wild boar issue is keeping the authorities on their toes. The tighter measures were introduced in consideration of the breeding season for wild boars that's set to start from November. How the animal disease found its way into South Korea is still unclear, but there's speculation wild boars might have brought it in from North Korea, which reported its own outbreak in late May. African swine fever is not harmful to people, but it's fatal for pigs. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
A growing trend among consumers here in South Korea is to look for big discounts on high-quality goods that have been refurbished. On the lower end, retailers like convenience stores are offering more products under their own brand. Our Yoon Jung-min has this report.
When new products are returned to shops due to reasons like minor defects, sellers repair and resell them to customers at much lower prices. Refurbished goods can be sold with up to 70% off the original price, and the goods can range from electronics to furniture and clothing. These products look new, but actually they are products returned with minor defects that have since been repaired. Sellers say they are just as good as new products at much lower prices. More and more people want quality goods at a more reasonable price, and those range from homemakers to single households, young people, and newly married couples.
I'm looking for a fridge to store kimchi because mine's broken. I'm comparing the prices with products at other shops. I prefer ones that are easy to use and that are cheaper.
The products are usually returned with minor defects or scratches. Some products are returned just because customers change their mind after purchase. The shop also gives discounts for products that have been on display at a store. But of course, there are things that consumers have to check before they buy products.
We recommend customers to check any defects, such as scratches, before buying goods. Most importantly, it would be wise for them to test the home appliances at the shop and check they operate well.
In the meantime, while some shops are going premium, others are targeting people who want less expensive products. A local convenience store brand released its own brand groceries this month, with ramyeon noodles for just 500 Korean won or about 40 cents. Other products such as a cup of coffee or a loaf of bread also cost around $1. With the refurbished market expected to grow $8.4 billion this year and $1 shops popping up across the country, more shops are expected to target those who seek more reasonable prices. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Most photos are now digital, raising the need for safe and reliable storage. Our Park Se-young shares with us a number of options for keeping and managing your digital memories.
Digital photo collections are more compact compared to boxes of photographs, but it's difficult to say which method of storage is safer. For instance, standard print photographs can still be recognized when partly damaged or stained. However, digital files can vanish even if they're partly damaged. This is why the method of digital file storage is important. There are three major types of digital storage: magnetic, semiconductor, and optical. Magnetic storage writes digital data as magnetic patterns on magnetic tapes or disks inside audio and video tapes, floppy disks, and hard disk drives. It was once a common form of data storage, but its use has been on decline due to the slow reading and writing speed. Semiconductor storage records data as electrons. Data is saved by sending energized electrons to the floating gate, where all data is recorded, and deleted by attracting the electrons away from the floating gate. USB flash drives, memory cards, and solid-state drives are all made of semiconductors. Semiconductor devices are commonly used due to their small size and fast speed, but data can be easily lost due to shocks or errors. In an ordinary environment, experts say the lifespan of a hard disk is approximately 5 years, while that of a solid-state drive is about 3 years. To safely store data over the long term, the best option is optical disks like DVDs and Blu-ray disks that write and read data using laser technology. If the disks are properly stored, the data can even be passed on down generations.
Because DVDs and Blu-rays can store data for about 100 years, your valuable data can be preserved for long periods of time without losing it.
As for photos and videos of important memories, experts say they should not be kept only in computers and phones, but backed up often. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Hong Kong's Finance Secretary Paul Chan has warned of negative economic growth this year for the city. Chan said through his weekly blog post that the past 4 months of protests have hurt various sectors of the city's economy. Hong Kong's government is to announce its estimates for the third quarter on Thursday, and it's most likely that the negative growth seen in the second quarter will continue into the third. If that happens, the finance chief says Hong Kong's economy will have entered a technical recession. Recent government data shows there has been an increase in the number of food imports that have been tainted with radioactive substances. According to a recent report by the Ministry for Food and Drug Safety, more than 1,100 contaminated food items had been detected since 2011, with numbers increasing every year. Those that most frequently tested positive for radiation were mushrooms from China and Russia, American blueberries, and Turkish hazelnuts. They took up more than half of the radioactive imported foods, excluding products from Japan. 5 days of national emergency drills known as the Safe Korea exercise kicked off today. The Public Safety Ministry says the drills will focus on evacuations in multi-purpose facilities such as markets and hospitals, taking lessons from a recent deadly fire at a nursing home in Gimpo. More than 700 institutions will take part, with over 1,100 drills planned. A nationwide earthquake drill will also take place on Wednesday, which daycare centres, schools, government offices and public institutions are obligated to take part in. Tiger Woods has tied the PGA Tour wins record with his 82nd career victory at the Zozo Championship in Japan. He finished the four-day tournament at 19 under, 3 shots below runner-up Hideki Matsuyama of Japan. It was Woods' first tournament since undergoing knee surgery 2 months ago. The 43-year-old is now level at the top of the PGA Tour wins list with fellow American Sam Snead, who set the record at the age of 52 in 1965.
Autumn showers are expected over parts of the country tonight.
Yes, and although there will be rain, we should also keep an eye out for air quality. For more details, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Hi guys, now according to the satellite, rain clouds are moving in from the northwest of the peninsula, bringing rain to the central areas throughout the evening. And the rain will spread down the southern regions and also for the west of Gangwon province as well, with 5 to 10 millimeters of rain up until dawn tomorrow. Now, the air quality is at standard levels, but we should keep a close watch as levels may fluctuate. Now, the dust particles may come down with the rain, so make sure to have your umbrellas handy and make sure to wash as soon as you get home. Now, the rain should mostly dissipate by the morning. Seoul will gradually brighten up with a morning low of 10 degrees Celsius. Now, Daegu at 9, while Busan and Jeju gets a milder start at to the day at 15 degrees. Now into the afternoon, sunnier conditions await for Seoul with temperatures topping out to 16 degrees, while Daegu tops 20 and Busan to 21. After this rain, clear skies will dominate the forecast throughout the rest of our week with chilly mornings and comfortable readings during the day. Now I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
Okay, that will wrap it up for today's Arirang News Center. Thank you, as always, for watching.
Stay tuned for more news updates throughout the day. News in Depth is next.